Hi, lovelies. Welcome to Spiritually Speaking. We have been inspired to create a series of discussions by friends who have insisted, having sat around our kitchen table with us and endured mind-bogglingly intricate conversations on life, the universe, and everything, that we should be recording these. And we hope along the way to invite friends to join us. So I am Alyce, and I'm here with Nkosinathi.
Hello.
And we're just going to have conversations like we do and put them together and put them out there for you that you can follow along and leave us comments in the comment section and ask us questions if you'd like. If you like the way we think, then you're welcome to come along this journey with us. And if you don't agree with us, that's okay too. We always encourage everyone to independently investigate their own truth. We've done that, and we do it every day. And having investigated our truth, we find ourselves here with a different perspective, maybe, to the majority of the world. So, a little bit of a background. We are currently on the southern tip of Africa, and we'll go into a little bit of that. That alone is interesting. Our origin stories are not that. I am African born, and Nkosinathi is not.
Oh, there's so much irony being slapped around here. I mean, let's address the white fish in the room. Yeah, it's just I think it's beautiful, and I think that's really part of Africa. Because Africa turns out to never be what you expected it to be, and that's the beauty because it expands your thought. But sorry, go ahead.
So, for a little bit of format and just to get ourselves going, I've thrown out the challenge to Nkosinathi that we'll have 5 questions each. Oh, 6, because he's now got.
No, it was 5 questions. It was 5 questions, and then I decided to be cheeky and put one more down because it was so difficult for me. I thought, okay, 5. All right, bet. Let's do one more. Let's do one more question. So, yeah.
Alrighty.
Challenge met.
So this friendship, just so you know, has its origins many, many, many years ago. Nkosinathi and I first met in the forests of the Transkei, where we were thrown together at a youth
convention, youth conference.
Was it a conference,
or
was it just a gathering of people?
No, it was definitely you. It was definitely
and
you.
We were gathered.
And we were gathered. And then it was the youngish adults who were really cool, but didn't want to be old. And and then there was Lol, who's always forever old. And yeah, I don't remember what the theme was or what the overall.
I think it was like a summer school type thing.
It was. I think it was like a summer school type of thing, and because it was a summer school type thing, we were sequestered in the forests of the Transkei from prying eyes because there was mixed company, and not mixed company in terms of girls and boys, but mixed company in terms of
colored people. Colors. We were of different colors.
We were of every nation almost. At that, I think we were well represented.
And in those days in South Africa, that was during apartheid South Africa.
No.
That was not allowed within the borders of South Africa. So in order to have a summer school, we had to all go to the Transkei, where we were allowed to gather under the same roof.
Only later on, when I was reflecting on many things, that I think, we were there because, and then, oh my.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time we just thought we were going to a cool place.
Yeah. But there was very conscious thought behind what we were doing.
So we have known each other for many decades now, and when we met, I was maybe 12, and Nkosinathi was maybe 15.
Yeah.
So there we were in the forests of the Transkei at a youth summer school, and our friendship has grown since then across many continents and many oceans and many decades and many lifetimes.
I was just going to say many lifetimes.
Yeah.
Wow, how many different lives have I led from then until now? It's a little bit scary.
And perhaps one of the most interesting things, or something that other people say is interesting. First of all, we live fairly unique lives, and we've had a fairly unique experience of life. But we've also traveled a lot. I think there are not many countries in the world where one of us hasn't been.
I haven't been to Asia, though.
Yeah, not Asia. I haven't been to Asia either. So there are, and that, by the way, if you heard that beep, is the sound.
That delicately, quietly, just quietly informing
in the
us
background that the power is back on. So, yes, so Southern Africa, load shedding.
The price of what you pay in South Africa for living in South Africa.
Yeah. All right, so shall we get going with these questions? Yeah, okay, I get to go first.
Oh, right. Damn, you wrote yours down.
Okay. Yeah. Oh.
Okay.
Okay. And the background is the surrounding beastie family. There are 5 dogs, 4 cats. So, we just have to apologize for the...
You may hear a plethora of sounds.
Yeah.
Ranging from high pitch to low pitch as befits the size of dog. So, enjoy.
Okay. How did growing up in South Africa differ from growing up in the USA?
Oh, good Lord.
No, well, you can think about this for a while I give out...
The quality of your first question already is putting me under pressure. I knew this was going to happen.
Let me give you some context. So Nkosinathi was born in the US and spent the first couple of years in the USA and then moved to Jamaica. His parents moved him to Jamaica and then back to the US. And then to South Africa, yeah? And for anybody listening with their ears and hasn't seen the picture that goes with this, Nkosinathi is a brown person. So the question really is, how did growing up in apartheid South Africa differ, do you think, from what would have been if you had grown up in the USA?
Wow. That is... Okay, I've said it already and I'll say it again. The quality of your first question has put me under immense pressure in terms of my questioning. I know this is not a competition. I am saying that to console myself. But back to the question, because it's a really good one. I want to answer that. But wow. You'd think that under South Africa, in the apartheid era, it would have been more oppressive. And I would have felt more pressure and, all of these incredibly negative things that we've heard about apartheid. And I'm not saying that it was a cup of tea and, we could just skip through it merrily to 1994 and, all's forgiven and forgotten and moving right along. Not at all. But despite all of the stuff that we had to live with in South Africa, I mean, as a teenager, I knew the shape of limpet mines. I knew not to kick stuff. I knew all sorts of things that as a kid, in South Africa, I would never have known. I would have had the need to know this. It's just, all I knew about America, in my experience, was the cops were assholes. Because I was harassed one day playing on a sandpit and some cop lied to me. It's going to eat you! I ran home crying because the sand's going to eat me. What did I know? I believed the authority of the cop figure. But I mean, that pretty much sums it up. It's a harmless encounter. But what you don't understand is that we moved here and then I grew up, spent a lot of years here, and then I went back to finish up my high school, and then I came back. So I'll use that as the comparison, those years. There's no way that you could give me if you gave me a choice as to, okay, what country do you want to live in? You've experienced them both. We're going to put you back in time and where you're going to live. I would pick South Africa every single time, because in South Africa, I knew what the rules were. They were clear. They were obvious. If you were walking down the street and somebody had a problem with your color, you knew it immediately. You knew what to expect. Everyone was upfront, right in your face sometimes. I mean, there were moments, but you knew what you were like, okay, all right, I know what to do here, and you dealt with it accordingly. But in America, everything was just one big fake smile after another. And it was the fake smile, and it was the knife in the back, and it was greasy and slippery and dangerous. I've never felt more unsafe in my entire life as to when I went back to the States. Which is ironic, because I couldn't get to sleep for the longest time because I didn't hear gunfire. But I felt unsafe in America because it was very clear that they're after me. Who they were, there's a whole nother thing. But it just is an unsafe feeling. I mean, we've all experienced, sometimes you go to a place you've never been, and you just feel like there's something wrong here. You can't put your finger on it, right? Everything was lovely, everything was good. Why wouldn't you live in America? Why would you live here? What? It was nothing like that. I did not feel comforted. I did not feel safe at any point, which is ironic, because in South Africa, there would be like a bomb, or somebody would be shooting, or someone would be, hey, let me, it was full on. But in America, faced with every fake smile I could possibly stomach, and the prevailing attitudes, it was just ridiculous. I could walk anywhere in South Africa and know what to expect. I could walk anywhere and know what to expect. If I was in an area where I wasn't allowed, I would know what to expect. I would know how to get myself out of it if I got into a jam. When I was in America, there was nothing that felt safe, first of all. So people would say, oh, no, we don't go downtown, it's not safe. Look, it feels the same downtown as it does in the suburbs. I don't know what unsafe you're talking about. There's more random stuff will happen to you downtown. Absolutely. But I still feel the same unsafe, unsettled feeling there in America. And I never felt that. And it gave me such a horrible longing for South Africa. And ironically, when I was in the States, I bumped into another South African who was doing an exchange. And we sat in the cafeteria of the school, both of us hating this experience and having a discussion in Afrikaans, commenting about how funny it was that we were having a discussion in Afrikaans in America, and we were discussing how cup it was. And it's like everyone was fast asleep. And it was like, how is this possible? You see, it's not the land of milk and honey. And we were both like, yeah, what the hell? And it was two South Africans having a conversation. It wasn't an American and a South African having a conversation. There was two South Africans having a conversation. And that blew my mind for the longest amount of time. And just being that, just unsettled, unsafe. And even when I went back as an adult, I still had an unsafe feeling. I felt more assured of myself, so I had some level of confidence. But there was still this unsafe feeling. I would go to certain places, and I would go to certain places all the time. So that if I went to, like every weekend, I would go to have breakfast in the same place. And I'd sit at the same table. To the point where I would get there, and they would go, oh, hey, I'll get your tea ready. Are you going to have the same? Because there was safety in being somewhere where people knew who I was and could vouch for my character.
Wow.
And I've never had that in South Africa.
So one of the questions I have is, it seems to me that perhaps there's a band of South Africans that are inherently streetwise.
Mm-hmm.
I think growing up in our era, in the apartheid era in South Africa, maybe made us, we watch movies where these movies of Americans who are I don't know, on
Clueless.
holiday somewhere and something goes wrong. And you
And
just
their response
think,
is to talk louder
or,
and then to say, I'm an American, which then proceeds to then target them for the ass whipping they deserve.
okay,
Yeah.
so that's another aspect maybe, is that in South Africa, because of the situation, because of apartheid, because of the transformation that South Africa was headed towards, maybe one just grew up more streetwise.
Absolutely. You had to be so switched on. On the whole, everyone was kind of relaxed, but like with their eyes out, like, I see you. I see you. Hey. Yeah. Okay, we're at a cafe having fun. I see you.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Where now you walk down the street and it's like, everyone's like on the phone. It's like,
I try and have this picture of who you would have been had you grown up in the States, had your parents not been so
Lord.
adventurous and not gone to Jamaica and not gone to Africa. If you had grown up in the US and visited here as an adult versus growing up here and visiting there as an adult.
Oh, I shudder to think that, because I feel I would have been so ignorant. I learned so much the day my feet hit the ground.
And your family said you were coming to where?
Oh my goodness. They even went out and bought books on like how to speak African, and they were all Swahili. Which we had those books. We moved them all over South Africa with us. Shame. So that was hilarious. There were like 5 books with all Swahili, all absolutely useless in South Africa. But anyway, it was a place called Trash Can, which
turned out to be
the Transkei.
Yeah.
So, and we were in Umtata, and it wasn't Trash Can, and it was absolutely lovely. And one of the experiences that I don't remember this guy's name, I really wish I did, but he left such an impression of Africa in my mind. So we get off the plane, which was a hell of an experience. Cramped and stuffy and hot, and get off the plane, and then the plane lands, and then you have to walk on the tarmac. It's like, what the? Now you've been in these huge jumbo planes, and then they're like, that's your plane to Trash Can / Transkei, and it's this big station wagon with wings. Okay, so we get in there, and it's cool, it's fine. It's actually quite fun to fly in because it's bopping up and down, and I wasn't scared of flying then. It was fun.
And you were 5. No?
I was tiny. So it was. There could be an excitement. And we get there, and we're driving down the road, and a guy comes to pick us up, and first thing he says is, "Welcome to Africa." And you can feel that he's actually like welcoming you. It's not a line from a movie because there was no such thing. It's a genuine, like he was welcoming us here. And we're driving down the road to the hotel that we were staying in, the downtown Umtata, the Savoy Hotel. And we're driving through these fields of maize. Sunflowers. Oh, my goodness. And the sun is coming in. I've never seen that sun before in my life. And it was the first time seeing the African sun. And it's on the fields of sunflowers. And this thing eventually turned to millies and stuff. And I'm like, wow. Trash Can is pretty cool. Because, I mean, I had been all over the States at that point, and I never, ever felt welcome. And no one ever said, hey, how you doing?
Oh,
Not even like it was always like, what do you want, you fucking kid? It was always a menace, you know what I mean? It was always like an annoyance. You know, kids in America are an annoyance, and you just kind of half look at them and stuff like that. One of the things that I noticed immediately in South Africa at the time when I got there is people would talk to me like a person and not like a child.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that had an impact on me because, I mean, which is good because I had some adult conversations with some people who were like, what the hell are you doing here? And then I had some adult conversations with people like, oh, hello, nice to have you. So it all balanced out. But yeah, there was another difference. So it was huge. No, you wouldn't get that in the States. You wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get that at all. Not that people weren't welcoming or stuff like that. It's just that it's just so much disingenuity. Is that even a word?
Disingenuity.
Disingenuity. Okay. Well, I kind of still speak American.
What I sense from what you're saying is that there's a level of tension in the US, or was back then, a level of tension in the US that was just kind of accepted. Like there was a level of tension all the time.
Yeah, it's fascinating to watch the US now, because they just went and poked the bubble. So now all they have to do is go and poke a bubble here, poke a bubble there, and it erupts into all sorts of chaos and pandemonium. And people are so caught up in the chaos and the pandemonium and their lives and this and that. And you just want to say to them, yo, take your shoes off. Put your feet on the ground. Not the concrete, this the ground. Shut up and speak to me in an hour. Because you are so far off reality. It's not like things like that don't exist in Africa, South Africa. It's just that in South Africa, you can die in 5 minutes from now. So why am I going to be upset about this? It's a different way of life. It's a different reality. It's a different approach. And you never sweat the little stuff like that.
Okay, so to shift gears completely. In the world today, we've had this almost anti-religious revolution where people have, not without cause, shifted away from formalized religion. So what does the term spiritual but not religious mean to you? And what do you think about that, and where do you fit within that context?
Wow. I would have given you a totally different answer at very different stages of my life. Absolutely. It's wow. But where I am right now, spirituality versus religion, unfortunately, because the nature of religion and where man has allowed it to go, I can totally understand why people are disenfranchised by it. You pick one. You could be disenfranchised about anything whatsoever. The scandals are there, the drama is there, the dislike, the hatred. It's like everything that you would think would be not of that thing is of that thing, and it's only of that thing. And you're like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be about my relationship with God. And how do I make myself better to improve that relationship? It's not about how I hate this person or how this person is wrong or how I'm entitled now to go and fight these people because they're not of me, or just so many derisive things going on in religion that have historically gone on for a really long time. So in this day and age, people see this, and I can understand why they would be disenfranchised, particularly with what's going on in the world, and there don't seem to be any kind of answers there. So it's kind of like fake comfort. But in terms of spirituality, you kind of take charge of it yourself. You don't hand over the reins to somebody else and say, I'm going to go here and this person's going to pray for me and I'm going to be all right, but then I'm going to go home and kick the dog. Spirituality, to me, you take responsibility for your actions, for where you are. That's what you need to address. Not, there's a great evil in the world, whatever, there is stuff in the world and all that stuff, but you need to sort yourself out first. So in terms of spirituality, I see it as you need to take care of yourself. And there are many different paths that you can take, as there are in religions. You could go down that path of spirituality, or this one or that one. And it doesn't really matter. I feel that it doesn't really matter, because if you honestly pursue it as far as you can, that journey is the lesson itself. And I think that people are so thirsty for that lesson and that journey that they very easily can either turn away from religion or turn to spirituality and try and enhance the experience between religion and spirituality within themselves. But it's just spirituality. You own it. You should own your spirituality. You are responsible, because of the way I see it, at the end of the day, I'm going to have to face up to what I have done and what I haven't done. And to me, to say I am pardoned by a body that exonerates this or exonerates that, I don't feel like I can have that excuse between me and the big guy when this curtain is gone, this veil of this world, and we're just spirit there, and go, well, they said it was okay if I, do this, and all those people were massacred, but I don't feel that would hold up in terms of what we're here for is to work on ourselves for the next world and not get caught up in this world. Yeah, we can have fun, we can do all this stuff. That's what it's here for. And working as a vehicle to better ourselves, and not as I have status or I have power, therefore I must now drive this car or I must do that. And with so many examples in our life of religious things going material ways. And you have the same trap in terms of spirituality, because sometimes when you say spirituality, people think, oh, you're just going to be smoking incense and playing on your didgeridoo. And there's a lot of that going on. I don't want to lie. There's a lot of that going on. But they're on their own path. As kooky and as crazy as it may be, they're on their own path. And they're going with it. And who am I to say, sorry, brah, you're wrong. That crystal's not going to help you much. Because a lot of people that I met who were spiritual were better people to me than people who were religious. So that's an experience that tempers, what I think and how I feel, my experience within myself and with people and with institutions. And because I've investigated and I've put myself in that place, I've gone there, not just I read the book. No, I read the book. I went to the place. I did the thing. I did the do. Come on. I think that's also our generation was like, don't talk to me about it's fancy.
Show me. Yeah.
Show me. And in spirituality, you get to do that. And no one gets to tell you you're wrong.
And yet,
they still do.
And yet some of the most spiritual people I know have no... I love that Zen proverb that I've told you about often. My sensei spoke to me of this, that our form holds us in our essence. And there have been a lot of spiritual people, obviously with my path going that direction, who have been beautifully spiritual, but could not organize, like the saying goes, a piss up in a brewery or something more with more decorum.
But yeah.
Whereas the religious side is more formalized. It has more structure. It has more, and so for people who are needing direction, religion does give us that. Yeah. It gives us these are the writings, these are the steps, these are the things, and where spirituality can be a little wafty. A little kind of. I mean, it's a great big universe out there, and what do we do next? Just so. I think in terms of if it makes you a better person, then it's so. In other words, if the tree bears good fruit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Ultimately.
So if you play your didgeridoo under the moonlight, and that turns and that means that you're a genuinely beautiful soul and you're good to others and you're kind and you do good things, then that's your path, and that's beautiful. If, however, you sit in some building once a week or once every however many days and return to your life and kick the dog and beat your wife, husband, partner, whoever, and then that is disingenuous. So I think spiritual but not religious. A lot of people go there to avoid the stigma that's now grown up around religion.
Yeah.
But the danger of that is that there's no fixed path. There's no guidance there.
You lose the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and you're kind of left to the winds of.
And I do want to clarify for our audience that we are God people. So we just want to apologize in advance to anyone who that word offends. Please just translate it in your mind to whatever feels better. I understand that people have feelings associated with the God word, and it doesn't, to us, that we're not attached to the word.
Substitute it for what you wish.
Yeah.
And take no offense, please.
Yeah. It's just, whatever higher power. We call it God simply because it's a little word to explain a whole big thing, but divine origin, creator, higher power, whatever you wish. All right, mister.
Yeah, maybe I can rope her into some other fascinating avenues of conversation. What's wrong with the modern storytelling? What is wrong with the way that we classically and typically have told stories? So the stories that I grew up with all had either a knight in armor and a dragon and a princess and all sorts of stuff like that. And then there were Greek stories and Roman stories, and I was lucky enough to get some other stories from some other cultures early on. So, but all kind of really following the same archetype. What's wrong with that?
I don't think you can say there's anything wrong with them. I think that the way we tell stories is a reflection of the time when the story is created. So in times gone by, the whole idea of the princess in the tower and the knight on the charger, that was a reflection of the time. I think it's disingenuous to go back now and remake those stories with new paradigms.
Mm-hmm. That didn't exist at the time.
That didn't exist.
I mean, they had issues to work through at their own time, but not the issues that we have now.
What is that British series that we watch? Bridgerton.
Yes.
Bridgerton. I had to watch that. I love the series, and I love everything British, and I especially love historical drama and British TV. To me, dramatic and that type of, like Downton Abbey and those. I love those. But Bridgerton disturbed me, and it took me a long time to figure out why it disturbed me. And just so our audience knows, my genetic history, although I was born in Africa, my genetic history is 1/4 Welsh, 1/4 Scottish, 1/4 Irish, 1/4 English. So I am actually the manifestation of the United Kingdom,
Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
The marriage of the four kingdoms
Kingdoms are united within
in me.
you, yes.
And I know that there is a lot of pride in the UK about being one of the first countries to banish slavery, and the people really got involved in getting rid of slavery, and now London at least is very much a melting pot, and there's far less cultural bias depending on where you go in the UK. It still disturbed me, though, that a historical story was retold or reimagined, I suppose, the way that the producers wish it had been.
In the most ideal setting. In the perfect world.
Yes.
This is what would have happened.
This is what would have happened, and people would have been of all colors and all nations, and it would have been all mixed like this. And while that there is an attraction to that, there's an attraction of wouldn't it have been lovely if? And yet I think when we ignore that it wasn't that way, we lose so much of the lesson. We lose the richness of what we learned in overcoming
those hardships at that particular time, because those are lessons that as humans we had to learn. And sometimes we learned them in pockets and then spread all over the world. But the hardship, you're absolutely right. The hardship that we faced.
And if we forget the hardship, if we just reimagine all the stories, then we run the risk of going back there.
Very easily, like quick.
Yeah, it's like we are.
Yeah.
We have abandoned bigotry, and prejudice because we learned through these experiences that it's stupid.
Yeah.
If we then say bigotry and racism and all of these things simply don't exist and we reimagine the world without them,
And they never existed back in those particular times,
then we lose the lessons that brought us to this present state, and we have the potential of backsliding.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question. I don't think there's
It
anything
does.
wrong with storytelling if it's authentic to the time, because it reflects a time. And in reflecting those times, we learn lessons. You know, like maybe James Bond shouldn't wear Speedos. You know, there are lessons that we learn.
Yeah.
And to remake that now with new swimwear teaches us nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. So the value in being in storytelling within the time of the story and being realistic and being honest and being truthful, there's value because it speaks to the suffering, it speaks to the achievements, it speaks to all of those things and is a genuine reflection. And as you say, then we can move on from there. We've fully digested it and we can move on from there. But if you go back and say, no, you didn't eat a steak, you ate chocolate pudding instead, it's a lie. And it's fakery, and it's nonsense, and you're not building on anything except cardboard. Is magic real?
Yes, absolutely. And that it all depends on the terminology and where it's coming from. So if you were a member of a culture, so my granny was a druid, and to her, if you ask the question of her, she would definitely say yes, and she would spell it with a K and all of those things, you know. And the idea of spell casting, and I've spent time with people who, and when we look at it in a traditional African healer context as well, there are things they do which would fall under that category of magic. The spell casting and whatnot, which I've come to understand is really powerful intent. I think that a person can have really powerful intent, and I think there are ways to harness forces to create outcomes that most of mankind has either lost the way of, or we live these unconscious lives where someone who is beside us with really conscious, focused intent, if we're living an unconscious life of just ping-ponging around, their conscious intent can overpower our unconscious living. And so I think the ritual and all of that really goes to solidifying the intent. You can also broaden that to include what I call fairies, which I mean those who have passed on in the next world. I call them fairies simply because it's not a triggering word for
It's
people.
not an offensive word,
Yeah, people kind of get triggered by the idea of ghosts or souls or spirits or whatever. So I call them fairies. In Africa, we think of them as ancestors. And yeah, I believe there are ways to harness ancestors. Where we have to find the line here to really know truth is where superstition starts and where it ends. So there is magic, definitely. There are ways of harnessing intent. There are focused intent can overcome unconscious living. But where does that truism end and where does superstition begin? And I think that certainly our experience has been that living as God-conscious or God-focused people, there is nothing I fear. So magic in a negative sense of, are we afraid of it? Are we? No, there's no such thing. I know that the will of God can overpower all of those things. There is no human intent that can overpower the will of God. And there's no individual animosity or whatever that can overpower the protection of God.
Mm-hmm.
So with God in your corner, everything else dissipates. But I certainly believe that, I mean, for many, many years in my origin story country, magic was a reality, and how much of that was herbal, how much of that was illusionary, how much of that was intent, how much of that was superstition, we won't know from here. But I definitely know that in the world today, there are people who practice what they call magic. I don't know that it's very different from harnessing the power of our will as co-creators with God. We are made in His image, and He is a creator, and therefore we have the power of creation ourselves. And I don't know that we ever consciously explore that, unless you're someone like me who wants to explore all of things like that. But exploring the idea of creation means that there are things that we can do to empower ourselves to influence reality and to change reality. And those things would certainly be called magic by people who didn't have that level,
who were not aware of.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just about what you know and what you don't know. I mean, to a tribe you encounter in the jungle, a motor car is magic.
A cell phone is
magic. Yeah. So magic certainly exists. It's just what its definition is, where it borders on superstition, and I think science, to a large extent, can be magic too.
Exactly, and I think that's really kind of like where I was trying to go with the question as well. Is there's a lot of magic in the world, but we've become so desensitized to what magic really is, and we look for magic in all the ridiculous places.
I think there's an aspect of magic that is is not fully explored, and that is the openness to wonder.
Exactly.
As a child sitting there watching a magician pull rabbits from a hat, there is an awe, there is a reverence, a desire to adventure into the unknown,
where all things are possible.
And that too is magic.
If you acquire the knowledge.
That is magic, both in the sense of the magician with the rabbit and in the sense of the human experience. The human experience of adventuring with delight into any exploration is magic. It can be magical. But that comes from our state of being on the adventure. So it comes from our focus.
The magic is in the experience.
Yes.
And not in, I'm going to stand here and go hokey pokey, hokey pokey, hokey. And then, so the magic is in the experience. And I think it's really just opening yourself up to wonder. To wonder and awe. That's the real magic. And that, and the focus on other things just really keep you focused on. Okay. I like that answer.
Okay. So
a little left of the field.
My third question is, if you could, having been everywhere you've been,
oh dear,
and we've lived on the various continents and various places, and if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be and why?
And the answer is very very quick. I would definitely be in South Africa, and I'd definitely be on the farm, and I'd definitely be where it's cold most of the time. Yeah, that's where I would be. And you couldn't, there's no amount of money you could give me to change my mind.
Yeah, that is so strange because there are so many people across the world. Well, look, until about 5 years ago, I think maybe 6 in 10 South Africans would have given just about anything for an American visa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Certainly more than half of the population. I mean, America was the promised land. It was the place to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
And here you sit as a citizen of that country.
Of the Emerald Land.
Yeah, and saying that you wouldn't want to be there.
No, you couldn't pay me enough money to go back to America at any point in time.
Mm.
I don't care what you... If you had a time machine and you said you could go back to America at any time and we would make you... No, not interested. You couldn't pay me enough. I understand what they're going through, and I sympathize. And I said to people for years while I was there, I said, when you wake up, you're going to blow this country up. And I said that about even like military people as well. I said, when you wake up, there's going to be nothing that can hold you back, because your outrage is going to be you're just going to explode. You're just going to explode with outrage. If you can see what I can see, there's no way that you can stand to tolerate it at all. And that's the case. But like now, you see the selective outrage, and it's like it's a slow boil. But there's a real pocket of people in America who really had enough. No.
Sorry, this is not a human being making that noise. It's two of the puppies having a conversation. No, could you not? Just leave.
Yes, we are talking, and we don't want to hear you talk.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
All right, then. Thank you. Thank you, love. All right, go lie down.
Yes.
Thank you. So, someone like Michael J. Fox climbs out of Back to the Future and hands you a once-off disposable time machine. Okay. What single choice would you want to go back and change?
Wow, I would have answered this so differently throughout my life. Yeah, and then the thought, let's go back to the Wild West, and then there's no flushing toilets. No, that's not. Ancient Rome, no toilets, no washing. It's all of that's no. OCD says no. So OCD just says, I would actually use it. I had to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I would use it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is I would go back with just enough time to really prepare for the hairy bullshit that we've just been through this past couple of years, and to maybe prepare myself a little bit more for the zombie apocalypse. That's it. Otherwise, look, I'd use it, not use it, wouldn't it? No biggie. But that's all I would do. If I was going to go, okay, bet, let's do that. I could stand to go back to do that. But otherwise, there really isn't any desire to go back to any other place, because when you think about it, you would be so weird. You would be so weird. I don't think there's a place in time that I could go back to and be okay. I mean, look, I'm not even okay now. All right? Really, you look at my skin tone, you look at my hair, you look at the way I speak. There is no place that I could go back in history and be who I am right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I have a real issue with forms. In South Africa, we still have this thing of when you fill out a form, you have to assign yourself a race.
The outrage in America over that one would just be ridiculous.
Which is very interesting for Nkosinathi, because when you explain to people, okay, so he's got ancestry that is Cherokee, Iroquois, African American, German, and Irish.
Yeah.
So what race were you thinking of, and which would you like to choose?
The only one you can pick is Chinese, and that's not a list in South Africa. So Asian, anything Asian. But you could almost, if you want to stretch the whole Native American thing, how far back do you want to go? I can't ever answer that question succinctly.
Yeah.
I just say go ahead. I remember I won't say who or where or what company I was working for, but when I was actually called into the HR's office and said, you have not filled out this form correctly, and you still refuse to answer it over the phone, so now I'm going to sit you across my desk and have a very serious conversation with you about this blessed form that has your selection of race that you must absolutely pick right now. because we cannot move forward. And I listened to this whole thing, and I just said, you pick. Because for the reasons you just gave, it doesn't matter. You're not wrong picking any other thing. Anything you pick, you're right. I can't pick. I can't choose.
And so I think in
some days I feel German. Some days I feel, Jamaican. And some days I feel a little crazy. But you go ahead and pick whatever you want to. I mean, I wonder how that person actually felt, because I stood up and left right after that. After listening to them speak for 10 minutes, I then gave them a 2-second answer and left. Go ahead. Whatever you want. I don't mind.
The options in South Africa are, first of all, they use a color, which, I have.
Yeah,
I have
that's just right off the bat.
So the one option is white.
What? Yeah. You what?
White, African, Indian, colored. Okay? Those are the options. And then there's other, okay? And so given those choices, I would always pick African. Because it's logical to me. I was born.
What are you? I'm African.
Africa.
I was born in Africa. What are you saying?
And then, of course, I come with the belief that I'm the palest, pale, red-haired, freckled Africa. How can I be African?
How can you be African? Well, you're born here.
And yet, that same person, given the choice between the two of us, would choose you as an African.
Which is wrong, because if you were born in Japan, you would be Japanese. If you were born in Russia, you would be Russian. If you were born in the Philippines, you would be a Filipino. It just doesn't matter what color you are. It's like you were born here, that's where you are. But there's another depth. People don't like sharing Africa. They don't like sharing. I don't know where this came from. I don't know how it got there. But people have a belief that you can only be African. Okay, all right, maybe. But haven't enough asses been kicked over color? Can we just throw this to the curb? Can we just get over it? Because there are so many skin tones in Africa that I could go on that are not pale. What do you want to do now? Should we divide these into separate bits and pieces? It doesn't make any sense. When does it stop? It doesn't. It's a mental illness. This desire to classify and to quantify every single thing, and particularly about race. Good Lord. If you ask people in America those questions, by the time they got to colored, they'd be like, colored? What you talking about? Colored? I'm with you, colored. You go, now we fighting. Because you said colored, and I was like, what do you mean colored? Because it's a thing. There is no thing. You either, in America, this is what doesn't make any sense either. Every different country you go to, they hate somebody else. That doesn't make sense. You could, like in South Africa, I'm loved. In America, I'm not so loved. And I don't know how I would be received in Asia. Wow, that would be really awkward. All 6'1" of me. Oh wow. They have a human body. They have a spirit, and they have a soul.
People want to know where they are on the totem pole, and historically, putting yourself above somebody else on that totem pole gives you a sense of superiority that humanity has clung to.
I don't want to ever be superior. I don't want anybody to ever say to me, you're superior because of this, that, or the other.
Well, that's what always drives me nuts about
the Lungu
work.
Exactly. It's a cheat. How do you know I'm superior? I'm an ass. How could I? What, you're saying I'm wonderful? I could be the biggest asshole. And just because I look like this, you think I'm wonderful. It's the same problem I have with celebrity.
Yeah.
It's why we got to classify and break down everything, and why can't you just be the person you are? And the person you are is either a good person or a bad person.
It reminds me of that story that your mother tells in her book, where she describes the experience of coming to Africa. And she speaks about how after being in some place for a while, the local Sangoma
Yes.
send someone to go and fetch her.
Yes, she was
And
summoned.
She was summoned
Yes.
to a local Sangoma to come.
Which is
and
the
sit-
dream.
Yes.
I have been called. My people have heard me. I'm going. I'm in the promised land. But now I am going to the bosom of my promised land. The people have spoken. What do the people... My nation, Africa, and my heart speak to me. That's what it's like, okay? It's big, man. It's big. I get a little emotion thinking about it, like, woo!
And she gets called to the Sangoma, who sits her down, and there's a translator obviously involved, and welcomes her and says, she really wanted to meet her, and your mum is saying, well, what can I do for you? What can I? No, I just wanted to meet you. I'd never met a brown mlungu.
Well, I just said about everything I just said. Slap it down in your face.
So for anyone not familiar, mlungu is the Zulu word really for, well, the literal translation of mlungu is person who knows something I don't know. So it's little indicative of superiority.
But that's what it classically
but
means.
Depending on who it's.
But typically when people say it,
it's not complimentary.
It's not complimentary.
Just to finish that story, what that meant was the Sangoma was saying to her, I've never met a brown white person. Which, coming from America, as an African American,
slap me in my mouth. That's what that's like. It's like, oh wow, it's like.
Okay. So
but I have experienced that as well. That's my whole Botswana story.
Do you have any other questions for me?
Yes, but I want to tell you my Botswana story now as you diverge into doing this. So, I spent over a month in Botswana, and we go to this one village. I don't remember where it was. I couldn't tell you on the map. All I know is it took us a really long time in that Toyota 4x4 to get there. It was in the middle of Botswana, in the middle of nowhere. And we got there and we were like, yay, we're here. And there's huts and village and all that stuff. And there's this woman. I have never seen a brown woman that old in my entire life. She was the epitome of ancient age. And she had been in the sun, and she had that whole skin. She was like, and I was like, wow. And they were kind of deferential around her. And I get out of the car, and what does she say? No! She literally stands up and points at me. No! Oh my goodness. I felt my mom's moment at that point in time. It's like, I have spent a month in your beautiful country, traveling around every rural village, meeting everybody, loving everything. And you greet me with mlungu. I was like, oh wow, that really took me a while to get over. I was a little sulky for a bit about that. I'm going to ask you this question because I think the answer is very important and pertinent to now. And not that I think it's an important topic.
Okay.
Does it matter if the world is flat or not?
So again, we've had this conversation, but I think...
We have, but I just wanted to get it down in fidelity.
I think the important thing is that if any group of people in this world currently believe in their hearts and that it is important to independently investigate any truth. And if those people are not asking this question, then there's something wrong with that. I think it stands as a model. We've all seen the pictures from space, right? That really seem to suggest that the Earth is round.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's... Look, here I am, I stand up, I walk across the Earth, and I've seen things about gradients and how this can't exist in the round. Okay, look, my life, does it change my life in
Mhm.
this moment?
Yeah.
If the world is a pancake, or if it's an egg,
On the back of a turtle.
or if it's floating on the back of a
Yes,
turtle,
thank you, Douglas.
held up,
We love
held up by elephants or whatever. I don't know that it makes any meaningful difference to our lives in this moment, which I think is always for me the qualifier of what questions are important. Does it change the way I will behave in the next moment? The answer to this question. I think the more important question is, who can we trust? What information in the world today can we absolutely trust? Because if you think about it, certainly the last generation, our parents' generation, absolutely trusted what people will refer to these days as
all of that stuff.
system.
Absolutely, it was.
Or
This
the
is
man,
the world.
you
This
know.
is the world, and this is how it is.
Yeah.
Boom.
And if the government said it was correct.
That's right. That's right. You will drink that fluoridated water because it's good for you.
Yeah.
Damn it.
And they had no agendas, and they just were interested in the well-being of mankind, surely. And I think that bubble is now burst. And in acknowledging that bubble is burst and that politicians the world over are not the trusted servants that our parents believed them to be, that opens a can of worms.
Yeah.
That then says what information that we have been presented with in the last 100 years is true.
Yeah.
And therefore, the principle of the independent, objective, independent investigation of truth is all the more important. And that really, I think, goes deeper than people understand. So if I look at any piece of information that is being presented to me, it's not just about investigating that piece of information, but also looking at what information is that information built on top of. And therefore, how deep do I need to go down this rabbit hole? If people are presenting to me right now that, fairies are real and dancing in the forests, because records 600 years ago recorded them doing so, then surely I must not only be questioning about the fairies now, but also the 600-year-old account. And so it's important for us to really be independently investigating all of this and considering the source. That's something I used to hear a lot growing up, was consider the source. Whenever there was any information presented, consider the source. Well, the source is all now in question.
It's been fact checked. Come on.
Exactly. So I don't know that the answer to that question is as important as the reason the question's being asked. I don't care in my own personal reality. I don't care if it's a pancake or an ovoid. I don't care. What I care about is, if it is a pancake, why have we been told that it was something else?
Why the lie?
And I don't know that where I stand right now, I don't know that I can honestly answer if the Martian, the green man from Mars, appeared to me tomorrow and said, what is the shape of the world you live on?
What is the shape of your Earth? Earthling, tell me now or die.
I would have
Fire
to
away.
say I've been told that it is an ovoid, and I have been shown pictures of it being an ovoid. There are other theories, however, and so without being too woo-woo, I don't know that I any longer trust
what we've been told.
What is recorded,
Wow. Han Solo shot first would be what I would answer. And then I would say blast away, because I don't know the truthful answer. Absolutely. So that's really why I wanted to ask you that question, because independent, individual investigation of the truth. That's what's important. And what we are basing everything off of the last 100 or so years, how are we doing there, guys?
I think it's become more important than ever that we also not propagate information that we aren't personally aligned with, even to our own children. And that becomes a whole dichotomy, because so that we don't pass on
nonsense and lies and disinformation,
even between people, this whole backbiting hearsay thing. If I don't truly know something, if I hear it from somebody else, should I pass that on? And no, I shouldn't, because I don't have personal knowledge of it. And I think the same is true for any information in this day and age, is that unless I myself have had a visceral experience of the roundness of the planet, I don't feel like I can pass on that information with any authority, simply because the origin of the information is now in question.
Yeah.
So, and that goes for any topic. I mean, the flat Earth
theory. I mean, it
goes for.
It actually was an open-ended question, but there's no way to quantify it without picking on a particular topic, and I like to pick on flat Earth and round Earth because it doesn't matter.
I think we should all be.
Are there aliens? No, there's no aliens. Are you guys out of your mind? What would they want possibly to do with Earth?
Oh, no. And I think, again, you have to quantify that. Of course there are aliens. For every planet, there is a species.
Yes.
There are aliens.
There are aliens. They just don't care about us.
Well, the fact that the Earth is under some kind of quarantine until we get our stuff together is really what we are. We are told. And so this whole idea of people inhabiting,
we'll spread out to the stars and spread the madness of which is humanity. Can you imagine what an awful thing that would be?
To infect the universe.
To even if we never bumped into another race, the thought of more worlds and more of this BS is so stressful to me. As humanity, I think we have a lot to offer, but we haven't even grown into understanding what that is. And until we actually understand that we're here for more than Range Rovers and Ferraris and big mansions and celebrity, and until we kind of get over ourselves, I think we're on quarantine. We're on absolute quarantine. We're on lockdown.
Your final question.
Okay. Very simple. My next question to you is as follows. Should we be afraid of ghosts?
Oh, goodness, no. Oh, goodness, no. Our ancestors and those who have gone before us, those who have passed over, they, first of all, when you die in physical form, so when your physical body dies, it is only your soul and spirit that pass over. So anything that belonged to the body, and so much of the griping and bitching and jealousies and hatreds and things, those issues usually belong to the physical experience, and they die with us when our physical form dies. And really all that can exist at the higher vibrational frequency that passes along is pure spirit, which is not vengeful and petty and all of that. Having said that, there are certainly energetic blips. They start out as thought forms. So you can have a traumatic experience, for example, in a home. Let's say a house has a traumatic series of events happen there, and the energy shifts. And because like attracts like, and because people give focus to that. So let's say there's a house, a family was murdered there. People all become aware in the area that a family was murdered there. That's the murder house. And the quality of attention focused on that house becomes such that
It feeds that energy
feeds
there.
the energy, and
because that kind of traumatic event leaves an energy.
Yes.
And the attention to that energy just attracts more attention to that.
Yes.
So it's you're kind of answering this. You've already answered this, but it's more specific to ghosts. So
yeah.
Okay.
So I don't believe in hauntings. I think though, and this opens up a whole new door, but the sixth sense.
Mm-hmm.
So my personal passion is around exploring, understanding this new awakening of humanity, which is the growth into the sixth sense and the differences between the sixth sense and the normals, and the normals being the five sensed. And I think for a sixth sensed child in a family of normals,
Mm-hmm.
to see a person who is not there, standing at the bottom of the bed, even if their intention is loving and
Mm-hmm.
kind, that could be terrifying to
Yeah.
them. Also based on culture.
Oh yeah.
So Hollywood tells
us
that anything outside of our five sense reality
Oh
is
gosh.
terrifying.
Oh gosh.
I mean, there are very few. And I look for them because I personally relate to them. But I look for good ghost stories. Nice
Fear the
ghost
world,
stories,
according to
you know.
Hollywood. Fear the world. Good Lord.
But Hollywood really and mainstream media really positions the ancestors and the fairies, as I call them, as terrifying entities.
Mm.
And so therefore it feeds this
Vengeful, angry things that have got
Yeah.
all of this evil intent for you,
and that's really not
or
true.
benign and useless entities that don't do anything.
Yeah,
It's just-
no, all those who have passed on that are contactable, that we are told very clearly that evil spirits
Mhm.
cannot interact with the living world.
Mm.
Okay, in other words, dead evil,
Mhm.
not living. Of course, there are living evil spirits
Yes.
in the sense of people who are purely evil, who can harness spirit.
Yeah.
That's a different issue altogether.
Yeah, that's another story. That's another kettle of fish to boil.
But if you have lived a despicable life and you are a pathological serial killer, murderer type who is evil of intent, complete evil, we are told through various religious writings that those people will not be allowed to influence this plane after their passing.
Yeah.
So they can't come around and haunt. But I think that for a young sixth sensed child, being able to see people who have passed on, or that within the backdrop of
when
what
your beloved
Hollywood
granny
has,
suddenly shows up to say, "Hi, I miss you, my child. Are you doing well?"
but within the backdrop of what Hollywood has created, that can be terrifying. But it's certainly not their intent. Their intent is comfort, their intent is positive, and mostly their intent is to undo the harm that they created to the ancestral line.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not free to move ahead until they do that. So it's pretty focused of them. What is your favorite religious principle?
Do you know? I mean, we've talked about it in this session, but really, my most favorite one: independent, individual investigation of the truth. It gives you the authority to follow your inquiring mind. And so many people have said to me, "Oh, you shouldn't look into that. Oh, I do that." Okay, cool, thank you. That's your opinion.
Yeah.
Now let me go and find out what's the good, bad, or indifferent about this particular thing.
I think it's important though to have a tether. I mean, I think if you're going to go diving down rabbit holes, you at least need to wear a harness. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. When you say tether, I'm going to take that a little bit further and say my tether in terms of my investigation has always been tempered by my God-centric view. So I'm not going to go and look into all the horror and rotten things in the world. There's a whole bunch of dark spaces that just because you can investigate doesn't mean you should investigate. So that's where that temperance, that kind of God-centric temperance goes, that's not for me. I don't need to know what that is. I don't need to traumatize myself in terms of that. I've got nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's, thanks. No, I'm good over here in this. So it kind of tempers you from I think, going too far in the wrong direction.
There's that Native American, I don't even know if it is really, but it's attributed to a Native American tribe that if you keep your eyes towards the light, then you'll never get lost in shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of investigate the truth on the way to the light.
Exactly.
Maybe don't go looking for grubs under.
Yeah, the darkness is pretty obvious. I found that darkness is really kind of obvious. There's very little wonder and mystery, and there's no joy. There's so much to investigate. There's so much that we don't know. There's so much that's assumed. That's a joyful discovery and enlightens your life and enriches your life and enriches the people around you. Why bother go muck in the poo? I mean, it's pointless.
And saying that, here's our last question. What do you think is the most important piece of mainstream news right now, and why?
Okay. A bit of a disclaimer. I'm not really following the mainstream news. But doesn't mean that I'm not aware of the topics. It's a minefield right there.
There's one piece. What is the most important piece of world news being discussed today?
The ones that are really meaningful to me are the ones that are enlightening, that are peeling back the assumptions of what we've assumed as true.
Is that mainstream though? Does mainstream even do that anymore?
Mainstream doesn't really do it anymore, and here's the thing about mainstream. Mainstream has been taken over by
propaganda machine.
By propaganda machine and all of that. So mainstream doesn't really speak with any kind of authority. So if you're gonna try and get a sense of or feel of what's going on.
No. Listen to the question again. What is the most important piece of news, not truth, but news, being bandied around the mainstream media right now?
I don't know if I can put my finger on any one thing. There's a lot of really interesting things going on right now. And what I'm enjoying is enjoying, not really the right word, but what I'm noticing is that there's a lot of upheaval in terms of people sifting through the truth. And that's what I like. So I don't really have a good answer for that in terms of the most important piece of news. Yeah, that's a hard one.
For me, it's simple. The global shift in power base. That there is no longer one superpower. That there is an acknowledgement just in the tensions arising in the various different places. There is an acknowledgement that there is power beyond what we always traditionally believed. And those facades are coming down.
Yeah, I think that's, the typical tiers and towers of power and the associations thereof. I mean, that's wow, that's like walls of Jericho coming down.
But I think it's also clear that the politicians and the interests of the politicians and the interests of the people of the world are clearly not aligned.
Okay. Yes.
I think that disparity is becoming clearer and clearer. And this is not a political discussion. I'm just saying in terms of the visibility, in terms of what we're seeing on our screens, that is becoming clearer.
Yeah, and the trust of overall authority and any of that, anybody, any institution, what I'm seeing is there are global conversations happening. Even in individual pockets, they're still happening. And all you have to do is tie those together. Where's the war?
Yeah.
Where's the war? You get rid of all the nonsensical, ridiculous agendas that they said was important and this. Basically, as human beings, I want to have a good life and you want to have a good life. And if we can both have a good life together, well, there's no need for war. There's no need for any of that. I can do my thing, you can do your thing, and the world goes on beautifully. But when you start stirring the pot and saying, hey, you got to watch out for those redheads. They're evil things. They will get you.
Oh.
And you start adding that dissent. I mean, people are just fed up with it now. They're just like, you see the fanaticism behind those towers of, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. And people are like, nah, brah. Nah. I was quite happy just to chill. Quite happy just to chill. Now you're provoking me to make me make a choice, and I choose you not.
Yeah.
How do you like that? Them apples. I choose you not. And that's the overall, what's really starting to happen now is people are starting to, I think, take back their own understanding that it's really not up to the typical structures that have taken authority. It's up to us. And ultimately, up to us means up to us individually and not as a body that we can just fob off and say, all right, y'all, come back in 12 months, tell me what you got. Because they're going to come up with some sugar pops.
So there we go. There we have it, spiritually speaking. So we hope you've enjoyed this time with us. I hope we've given you some food for thought.
Absolutely.
Please just drop into the comments and like and subscribe and all of those standard requests that everybody, I mean, to be honest, you can or not.
Do it, don't do it.
Whatever, it's all good. It's all good. Follow what feels good for you.
We're not doing it for that. But if you want to do it, go ahead. Yeah, it's fine. Lovely.
And hopefully if you've got any resulting questions, you'll drop them in the comments for us and you'll let us know if there's a topic that you would like us to explore and to share about.
Yeah, anything like, I'd be happy to investigate something and have a discussion about that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are rabbit holes are many. Plenty that we have dived down. So from us in the southern tip of Africa, with our view in the world, our alternative view in the world, we wish you good night and all the very, very best. May love pounce on you. May delight seek you out. And may joy be your goal every day.
See, lovely.
Good night.